The distress signal had been repeating for 16 hours when the quiet dawn finally detected it. Navigator Oben, a crystalline being whose body hummed with faint blue light, translated the transmission 3 times before believing it. Someone was calling for help from Sector 77 Delta, the place every spacefaring species called the Silence. Captain Rella Vorn pressed all 4 of her hands flat against the navigation console. Her pale violet skin had gone several shades lighter. In 30 years of merchant trading across the galaxy, she had never been this close to the Forbidden Zone. Nobody came this close. The Galactic Assembly had drawn a hard border around this sector 3 centuries ago, and the warnings were clear. 17 survey fleets had entered the Silence over the years. Not one ship ever returned. No wreckage was found. No bodies recovered. No explanation given. "We should ignore it," said Engineer Talbreck from the lower deck. The massive Gorvathi climbed up through the access hatch, his stone-like gray skin scraping against the metal frame. "Whatever killed those fleets is still in there. The signal is coming from a ship," Oben said. His crystalline form pulsed with each word. "A civilian freighter. Fraxi design. They're asking for fuel and medical supplies." Vorn closed her eyes. A Fraxi ship meant traders like themselves. Ordinary people who had somehow drifted into the most dangerous sector in known space. She looked around at her crew. 12 beings from 5 different species, all watching her, waiting for a decision. "Our own fuel reserves are critical," Tal Breck reminded her. "We cannot make it back to the nearest station without resupply. The signal's coordinates show a planetary system," Oben added quietly. "Old charts mark the 3rd planet as habitable. There may be resources there." Vorn opened her eyes. "How old are those charts?" 300 years. Before the quarantine. 300 years. Before whatever horror swallowed 17 fleets, made this place forbidden. Vorn thought about the Fraxi traders sending that signal. She thought about her own crew, low on fuel, days away from the nearest help. She thought about the stories she had heard since childhood. Ships that vanished. Soldiers that disappeared. An entire Imperial dreadnought with 4,000 troops aboard that simply stopped existing. "We cross the boundary," she said. "We find those traitors. We find fuel. We leave." Nobody argued. They were all thinking the same thing. Death by starvation in empty space, or death by whatever lurked in the Silence. At least the second option came with a chance of survival. The quiet dawn crossed into Sector 77 Delta at half speed. The transition was marked by nothing but a subtle change in their sensor readings. One moment, they were mapped space. The next, they were somewhere else entirely. "Debris field ahead," Oben announced. His voice had lost its usual calm. Multiple contacts. Hundreds of them. Vorn looked at the sensor display and felt her stomach drop. Ships. Dozens of ships drifting in the void. Some were ancient, their hulls pitted by centuries of micrometeorite impacts. Others looked almost new. She recognized assembly military designs, merchant vessels, scientific survey craft. All of them dark. All of them dead. No life signs, Talbreck confirmed. But no damage either. These ships were not destroyed. They were simply stopped. The crew moved through the graveyard in silence. Vorn counted the wrecks as they passed. 47 vessels from at least 12 different civilizations. Some of these ships had been missing for centuries. Their crews had families who never learned what happened to them. Now Vorn knew. They made it this far, and then something ended them. The 3rd planet appeared on their sensors an hour later. Vorn expected a dead world. She expected ruins at best, nothing at worst. What she saw made her forget how to breathe. Cities. Thousands of lights scattered across the dark side of the planet. Orbital stations circling in precise formations. Ships moving between them in patterns that spoke of organization, purpose, civilization. This was not a dead world. This was a thriving colony, hidden for 3 centuries behind a wall of fear and silence. "That is impossible," Tal Breck whispered. The assembly said nothing lived here. Before Vorn could respond, every speaker on the ship crackled with the transmission. The voice spoke perfect Galaxian standard, but with an accent none of them recognized. Unidentified vessel. You have entered protected space. State your intentions or be neutralized. You have 60 seconds. Vorn's hands moved to the communication controls. Her mind raced through everything she knew about first contact protocols, diplomatic procedures, survival tactics. None of it seemed useful now. "This is Captain Rella Vorn of the merchant vessel Quiet Dawn," she transmitted. "We are responding to a distress signal. We mean no harm. We are low on fuel and seeking assistance." The silence that followed lasted 12 seconds. It felt like 12 years. "Maintain your current position," the voice finally replied. "Prepare for boarding inspection. Any deviation from these instructions will be treated as hostile action." "Acknowledge." Vorn acknowledged. She had no other choice. Through the viewport, she watched two vessels approach from the planet's shadow. They moved like nothing she had ever seen. Sharp turns at impossible angles. Acceleration that should have killed any crew inside. Technology that made the assembly's best warships look like children's toys. The crew of the Quiet Dawn had come looking for stranded traders. Instead, they had found something that changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. And now that something was coming aboard, 5 figures walked through the airlock in perfect formation. They wore sealed suits of dark material that seemed to absorb the light around them. Each one carried a weapon that Vorn did not recognize, held with the casual readiness of soldiers who had used them many times before. The crew of the Quiet Dawn stood in a line near the cargo bay entrance. 12 traders facing 5 armed strangers. Vorn had ordered everyone to keep their hands visible and their mouths shut. Whatever these beings were, they had destroyed 17 fleets. Politeness seemed like the minimum requirement for survival. The leader of the boarding party stopped 3 meters away and studied them in silence. Then she reached up and removed her helmet. Vorn heard Tal Breck inhale sharply beside her. She understood why. The face beneath that helmet was deeply unsettling. Not because it was alien or monstrous, but because it was almost familiar. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. Bilateral symmetry like a Melisari. Dense muscle beneath soft skin like a Gorvathi. The proportions were wrong, though. Too balanced. Too symmetrical. Like someone had taken pieces from a dozen species and assembled them into something new. "I am Commander Ada Reyes," the being said. Her voice was calm and professional. "You are in human territory. This is your first and only warning. Any hostile action will result in immediate termination." "Human." Vorn repeated the word carefully. She had never heard it before. "I apologize, Commander. I do not know your species. There is no record of humans in any galactic database." Reyes's expression flickered. Something passed behind her eyes that might have been anger or pain or both. "No, there would not be." She gestured to one of her team, who stepped forward with a scanning device. The device swept over the Quiet Dawn's computer systems, pulling data faster than Vorn thought possible. After 30 seconds, the soldier nodded at Reyes and spoke quietly. "Assembly registration. Merchant class. No military hardware. Crew biological profiles match civilian records." Reyes studied Vorn with new intensity. "You are from the Galactic Assembly." "Yes. We are traders. We detected a distress signal from this sector and came to assist." "There is no distress signal." The words hit Vorn like a physical blow. She turned to Oben, who was already checking his instruments. The crystalline navigator's light pulsed rapidly with confusion. The signal was real, Oben insisted. "I verified it 3 times. Fraxi encoding, civilian frequencies, standard emergency protocols." Reyes nodded slowly. "It was real. We sent it." Vorn felt cold spread through her body. "You lured us here. We needed to see who would come. The Assembly has been sending ships into our space for 3 centuries. Most of them carried weapons and soldiers. We had to know if you were different." Reyes paused. "Your ship has no weapons. Your crew includes no military personnel. Your cargo is trade goods, not explosives. You are not what we expected." "What did you expect?" "Assassins, like the last 12 ships that entered our territory." Vorn's mind struggled to process this information. The Assembly sent assassins into the silence? The same Assembly that warned every citizen about the horrors lurking in Sector 77 Delta. She thought about the debris field they had passed. All those dead ships, not victims of some cosmic monster, but casualties of a secret war. I do not understand, she said carefully. The assembly teaches that this sector contains a threat to all spacefaring civilizations, something that destroys any ship that enters. Reyes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The assembly is correct. There's a threat here. We are the threat. Or rather, we became one after your assembly tried to exterminate us. She reached into her suit and produced a small device. A holographic display activated, showing an image that made Vorn's blood freeze. 3 ships, primitive by galactic standards, drifting in space. Assembly warships surrounding them. And then weapons fire. 2 of the 3 ships exploding into debris and bodies. 300 years ago, 50,000 humans left our home world to find new places to live. We had just discovered faster-than-light travel. We did not know the galaxy was already claimed. Reyes's voice remained steady, but her hands had tightened into fists. The assembly intercepted our colony ships at the edge of their territory. They declared us a contamination, a primitive species that needed to be eliminated before we could spread. They destroyed 2 ships without warning. 38,000 people died in minutes. The 3rd ship escaped, Vorn whispered. 12,000 survivors reached this system. They landed on a harsh world with almost nothing. 4,000 more died in the first decade. Reyes met Vorn's eyes. But we learned. We built. We remembered. And when the assembly sent ships to finish the job, we were ready. Vorn looked at the debris field visible through the viewport. 47 ships. 3 centuries of failed attempts to destroy a species that refused to die. The assembly told us you were monsters, she said. Monsters do not build schools and hospitals, Reyes replied. Monsters do not welcome refugees and teach them to read. Monsters do not spend 300 years hoping that someday someone would come in peace instead of war. She stepped closer. Are you that someone, Captain Vorn? Or are we going to add your ship to our collection? Vorn looked at her crew. 12 faces watching her. 12 lives, depending on her answer. She thought about everything she had been taught about the silence. Then she thought about what she had just learned. We came to help, she said. That has not changed. Reyes studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Then welcome to human space, Captain. We have much to show you. The orbital station called Haven was larger than any structure Vorn had ever seen. It stretched across the void like a metal flower, its petals reaching toward the stars. Thousands of lights glittered along its surface. Ships of all sizes moved around it in carefully coordinated patterns. This was not a military outpost or a hidden bunker. This was a city floating in space. Commander Reyes led the crew through corridors that hummed with activity. They passed beings of every shape and size. Some were human, but many were not. Vorn recognized Gorvathi features on one group, Fraxi crystalline structures on another. Species that should have been enemies were walking side by side, talking, laughing, living. You have other species here, Talbrecht said. His stone-like face showed rare surprise. Ow! Not everyone who entered our space came as an enemy, Reyes explained. Some were prisoners on assembly ships. Others were refugees fleeing persecution. A few were deserters who refused to participate in genocide. She gestured toward a group of children playing in a common area. Human children and alien children together, chasing each other without any sign of fear or hatred. Their descendants have lived here for generations. They are as much a part of this community as any human. Vorn watched the children play. On assembly worlds, species lived in separate districts. They worked in separate industries. They were taught from birth that other species were competitors at best, threats at worst. Here, the barriers simply did not exist. Reyes brought them to a room with curved walls covered in names. Thousands of names. Millions of names. They stretched from floor to ceiling and wrapped around the entire chamber. Some were written in human script. Others used Gorvathi symbols, Fraxi light patterns, Melisari flowing characters. This is the memorial, Reyes said quietly. Every name represents someone who died defending this place. Umans, Gorvathi, Fraxi, Melisari. Others, they all fought together. They all died together. An elderly human approached them. His hair was white, his face lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "Commander, I see we have guests." Director Cole Abra Reyes introduced him. "He oversees our historical archives." "Director, this is Captain Vorn and her crew." They came in response to our signal. Abra studied them with an expression Vorn could not read. "Assembly citizens. It has been a long time since we had peaceful visitors from that side of the border." "They did not know," Reyes said, "about any of it." Of course they did not. Abra sighed heavily. "The Assembly has had 3 centuries to bury the truth. Why would ordinary traders know about crimes their government committed before their grandparents were born?" Vorn felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. What crimes? Abra led them deeper into the archive. Holographic displays activated around them, showing documents, images, recordings. Evidence of a history that had been erased from every database in Assembly space. When our colony ships first encountered the Assembly, we believed we had found allies, Abra explained. We were young, optimistic, naive. We did not understand that the Assembly viewed any new species as a threat to be eliminated or controlled. A recording played. Assembly officials discussing the human contamination in cold, clinical terms. Plans for complete eradication. Estimates of how many weapons would be needed. Arguments about whether to capture specimens for study before destroying the rest. They called it Operation Clean Sweep. Abra continued. The attack on our colony ships was just the beginning. When they learned that survivors had escaped, they sent fleet after fleet to finish the job. They told their citizens that this sector contained a dangerous anomaly. They called it the silence to explain why no ships ever returned. But ships did return, Tal Breck said slowly. Some of them. Abra nodded. When we captured an enemy vessel, we gave the crew a choice. Return home with wiped navigation systems, stay here as refugees, or face justice for participating in genocide. Many chose to stay. They saw what we were building and wanted to be part of it. Why did none of them expose the truth? Vorn asked. Those who went back had their memories altered, Reyes answered. Assembly technology. They remembered entering dangerous space. They remembered being attacked by unknown forces. They did not remember us. They could not. Vorn felt sick. Her entire understanding of galactic history had been a lie. The monsters in the silence were not monsters at all. They were survivors of a crime so massive that entire governments had worked to hide it. There is more, Abra said. He activated another display. Our technology did not develop in isolation. Every species that joined us contributed knowledge. Fraxi crystal matrices improved our power systems. Gorvathi hull designs made our ships stronger. Melisari navigation techniques helped us travel faster. He looked at Vorn with something like hope. We are not humans anymore. We are something new, something built from cooperation instead of competition. The display showed the station they stood in. Haven, constructed over 3 centuries by beings from a dozen worlds. A monument to what different species could build when they worked together instead of fighting. The Assembly teaches that resources are limited, Abra said. That species must compete to survive. That cooperation is weakness. He smiled gently. We learned a different lesson. We learned that sharing knowledge multiplies it. That working together creates more than any species could create alone. That the only real weakness is the fear that keeps us divided. Vorn looked at the memorial wall again. All those names, all those sacrifices. 300 years of defending a dream that the Assembly had tried to destroy. Why are you showing us this? She asked. That Abra's expression grew serious. Because the Assembly is planning something. Something that threatens everything we have built. And you, Captain Vorn, may be the only ones who can help us stop it. Navigator Oben spent 3 days in the human archives. His crystalline body rarely needed rest, and he used every hour to absorb information. The records were complete. Every ship that had entered human space for 3 centuries was documented. Names, dates, purposes, outcomes. The truth was all there, waiting for someone to find it. On the 4th day, he called the crew together in their quarters on Haven Station. I have found something, he said. His light pulsed with agitation. Something that changes everything. Captain Vorn leaned forward. Show us. Oben projected a series of documents onto the wall. Assembly military orders, marked with the highest levels of classification. Ships designated as scientific vessels that carried enough weapons to destroy cities. Diplomatic missions that were actually assassination teams. Research expeditions designed to deploy biological agents targeting human DNA. The Assembly has been trying to exterminate them for 300 years, Oben said. Not occasionally, continuously. Every decade, new operations, new weapons, new attempts. Talbrecht's stone face showed rare emotion. Shame. My people participated in this. The Gorvathi military sent soldiers here. Many Gorvathi now live on this station, Oben replied gently. Their descendants have become part of this community. The humans do not hold children responsible for the crimes of their ancestors. Bourne studied the documents carefully. The Assembly told us the humans were a threat, a contagion, something that needed to be contained for the safety of all species. They created the threat they claimed to fear, Oben said. 12,000 survivors with primitive technology became what you see today because the Assembly kept attacking them. Every weapon sent against them was studied and improved. Every tactic used against them was analyzed and countered. The Assembly spent 3 centuries trying to destroy them. Instead, they created the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Commander Reyes entered the room, followed by Director Abra. Their expressions were grim. We need to talk about why we brought you here, Reyes said. Vorn stood. You said the Assembly is planning something. Operation Cleansing Light. Abra activated a new display. 40 dreadnoughts. 200 support vessels. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Launch date, 6 months from now. Mission objective, complete sterilization of Sector 77 Delta. The crew fell silent. The numbers were overwhelming. Even with 3 centuries of technological advancement, the humans could not possibly survive such an assault. Can you stop them? Talbrecht asked. Probably, Reyes admitted. Our weapons are more advanced. Our ships are faster. But the cost would be catastrophic. Millions would die on both sides. Everything we have built would be damaged or destroyed. She paused. We do not want to win a war. We want to prevent one. How? Vorn asked. Abra stepped forward. The Assembly's power depends on lies. Their citizens believe we are monsters. They believe the silence contains horrors beyond imagination. They believe their government protects them from cosmic threats. He gestured toward the archives. What if they learn the truth? What if every species in the galaxy discovered that their leaders have been committing genocide for 3 centuries? Revolution, Oben said quietly. Political collapse. The Assembly would tear itself apart. Or reform, Abra said. The Assembly is not evil. Its leaders made terrible decisions, and their successors have been covering those decisions ever since. But ordinary citizens, people like you, they would never support this if they knew. We're understood now. You want us to carry the truth back. We have 3 centuries of documentation, Reyes said. Evidence that cannot be denied. Genetic records of the biological weapons. Video footage of the attacks. Intercepted communications between Assembly commanders. Everything needed to prove what happened. Why us? Talbrecht demanded. We are traitors. We have no political power. You have something more valuable, Abra replied. You have connections. Captain Vorn comes from a respected Melisari trading family. Navigator Oben belongs to a Fraxi collective that controls information networks across 3 sectors. Engineer Breck, your grandmother is a senator in the Gorvathi government. Vorn stared at him. How do you know these things? We have watched the Assembly for 300 years. We know who has influence. We know who might listen. Abra's expression softened. We are not asking you to fight for us. We are asking you to tell the truth, to plant seeds that might grow into something better. The crew looked at each other. 12 beings who had left home as simple traders. Now, they were being asked to change the course of galactic history. If we do this, Vorn said slowly, the Assembly will come after us. Our families. Everyone we know. Yes, Reyes admitted. There is real danger. We cannot force you to accept it. Talbreck was the first to speak. My grandmother dedicated her life to the Gorvathi Senate. She believes in justice. If I show her this evidence, she will fight for it. She will not let it be buried. Oben's light pulsed with determination. The Fraxi collective values truth above all else. Once they see this data, they will spread it to every corner of the galaxy. One by one, the crew members spoke. Each had someone they could reach. Each had a connection that might matter. They came from different species, different worlds, different lives. But they all agreed on one thing. The truth was worth the risk. Vorn looked at Reyes and Abra. We will do it. We will carry your message. Abra reached into his coat and withdrew a small crystal. It glowed with soft blue light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. This contains everything, he said. 3 centuries of truth. Guard it carefully, Captain. The future of more than one civilization may depend on what you do next. Vorn took the crystal. It felt warm in her hand. Warm with the weight of millions of lives lost. Warm with the hope of millions more who might be saved. We will not fail you, she said. And for the first time in 300 years, the humans had reason to believe that peace might be possible. The quiet dawn left human space on a gray morning. If morning could be measured in the eternal darkness between stars. Captain Vorn watched the orbital station Haven shrink behind them until it was just another point of light among millions. Somewhere on that station, Commander Reyes was watching them go, hoping, waiting, trusting strangers with the fate of her entire civilization. The data crystal sat in a hidden compartment beneath the navigation console. 3 centuries of evidence. Proof of crimes that could shatter governments. The most dangerous cargo any ship had ever carried. For months to reach Assembly Central, Navigator Oben reported. If we maintain maximum speed and avoid all patrols. We will not avoid all patrols, Vorn replied. That would raise suspicion. We maintain normal routes, normal speeds, normal behavior. We are traders returning from a failed salvage run. Nothing more. The crew had agreed to split the data crystal's contents. Each member carried copies hidden in personal devices, encrypted with human algorithms that assembly technology could not break. If any of them made it through, the truth would survive. The first patrol found them at the sector boundary. 2 assembly cruisers running standard checkpoint operations. Vorn felt her heart pound as soldiers boarded her ship for inspection. Merchant vessel Quiet Dawn. The patrol commander read from his datapad. You entered restricted space. Explain. Distress signal, Vorn lied smoothly. We investigated. Found nothing but old debris. Fuel shortage forced us to scavenge from derelicts. She handed over falsified logs that the humans had prepared. We barely made it out. The commander studied the logs. His soldiers searched the cargo hold, scanned the computer systems, examined every accessible space. Vorn held her breath. If they found the crystal, if they broke the encryption, everything would end here. Your logs show you spent 6 days in the restricted zone, the commander said. His voice was suspicious, but not hostile. What did you see? Death, Vorn said. Wrecked ships. Empty space. Whatever is in there, we want nothing more to do with it. The commander nodded slowly. Most who enter the silence never return. Consider yourselves fortunate. He handed back her credentials. Proceed to the nearest station for formal debriefing. Do not discuss your experience with civilians. The patrol departed. The crew breathed again. They repeated this performance at 3 more checkpoints over the following weeks. Each time, Vorn told the same story. Each time, the soldiers found nothing. Human encryption was worth 3 centuries of advancement. The assembly might as well have been searching for invisible ghosts. Talbreck left the ship at Gorvathi Prime. His grandmother met him at the port, her ancient face showing both relief and confusion at his unexpected return. Vorn watched from a distance as he embraced her, spoke quietly into her ear, pressed something small into her weathered hands. The old senator's expression shifted from confusion to shock to cold determination. Within a week, she had called an emergency session of the Gorvathi Senate. Closed doors, evidence to be presented. The first seed had been planted. Navigator Oben departed at a Fraxi communication hub. His crystalline collective operated information networks that spanned 3 sectors. When he uploaded the human data to their shared consciousness, the truth began spreading faster than any ship could travel. Encrypted, hidden, but present, waiting to be unlocked at the right moment. One by one, the crew separated. Each went to their people. Each carried their portion of the truth. Vorn traveled alone for the final leg of the journey, her ship feeling empty without the beings who had become more than crew over the past months. She reached Melisari space on schedule. Her family was wealthy, respected, connected to trade guilds that operated across dozens of systems. When she showed them the evidence, they reacted as she expected. Disbelief, horror, anger, then determination. The truth spread like fire through dry grass. Senators who had never questioned their government began demanding answers. Journalists who had never heard of Sector 77 Delta started investigating. Military officers who had participated in operations against the Silence suddenly found their service records being examined very closely. The Assembly leadership tried to suppress the information. They called it propaganda. Ennemi fabrication. A coordinated attack on galactic stability. But the evidence was overwhelming. Video footage could not be faked. Genetic records of biological weapons matched Assembly military laboratories. Communications between commanders used encryption that only Assembly technology could produce. Within 3 months, half the member species were threatening to withdraw from the Assembly. Trade routes were disrupted. Military alliances were questioned. The carefully constructed lies of 3 centuries were collapsing under the weight of a truth that could no longer be hidden. Operation Cleansing Light was canceled. Not because the Assembly leadership grew a conscience, but because they no longer had the political support to launch it. The coalition they needed had fractured. The soldiers they required were refusing to serve. The ships they planned to send were needed to maintain order in systems that suddenly did not trust their government. Vorn received a message from Commander Reyes 4 months after leaving human space. It was brief. 3 words. "Thank you, Captain." The battle was not over. The Assembly still existed. Its leaders still held power. The crimes of the past had not been punished, only exposed. But for the first time in 300 years, the humans were no longer alone. For the first time, the galaxy knew the truth. And truth, Vorn had learned, was a weapon more powerful than any fleet. 6 months had passed since the truth broke free. Captain Rella Vorn stood at the helm of the Quiet Dawn once more, but this time she was not alone. Behind her vessel, a convoy of 30 ships followed in careful formation. Diplomatic cruisers from 12 species. Trade vessels loaded with gifts and supplies. Scientific research craft eager to learn. Families seeking new homes far from the chaos that had engulfed Assembly space. The border of Sector 77 Delta no longer carried warning beacons. The automated threats had been silenced. The quarantine that had lasted 3 centuries was officially over. Approaching designated coordinates, Navigator Oben reported. He had rejoined the crew a month ago, his crystalline form pulsing with barely contained excitement. Human escort vessels are moving to intercept. Vorn smiled. Let them come. 2 ships emerged from the darkness ahead. Sleek designs that still looked impossible to Assembly engineers. They moved with the same impossible grace that had terrified Vorn on her first visit. Now, that grace filled her with hope instead of fear. Commander Reyes appeared on the communication screen. She looked different than before. Lighter. Younger somehow, though no physical change had occurred. The weight of constant vigilance had lifted from her shoulders. Captain Vorn, welcome back. Commander, I brought some friends. Reyes looked at the convoy trailing behind the Quiet Dawn. Her expression shifted through surprise, wonder, and finally something that might have been joy. So I see. All of them. Diplomats from the Melisari Confederation. Scientists from the Fraxi Collective. Traders from Gorvathi merchant guilds. Families who want to live somewhere their children will not be taught to hate. Vorn paused. They all asked the same question. They all want to know if they would be welcome. They are welcome, Reyes said softly. They have always been welcome. We were just waiting for them to arrive. The convoy entered human space without incident. No weapons locked. No warnings transmitted. Only an escort of human ships guiding them toward Haven Station, which glittered in the distance like a jewel against the velvet darkness. Director Abra met them at the docking bay. He looked older than Vorn remembered, but his eyes held the same quiet wisdom. Behind him stood representatives from every species that had made human space their home. Gorvathi engineers, Fraxi scholars, Melisari artists, others that Vorn did not recognize. A community built from refugees, survivors, and dreamers who had chosen to build something new together. You did it, Abra said to Vorn. You actually did it. We told the truth, Vorn replied. The galaxy made its own choice. The choice had not been easy. The assembly was in turmoil. 3 member species had formally withdrawn. Others were demanding complete governmental reform. Military leaders who had participated in operations against human space were being tried for crimes against civilization. The old order was crumbling, and nobody knew yet what would replace it. But here, in the sector once called the Silence, new things were being built. Vorn walked through Haven Station's corridors. They were more crowded now. New faces everywhere. Diplomats negotiating trade agreements. Scientists sharing research that had been developed in isolation for 3 centuries. Children from a dozen worlds playing together, learning together, growing up without the barriers that had divided their parents. She found herself standing before the memorial wall. The millions of names still stretched from floor to ceiling. But now there was a new section at the end. Smaller. Different. We added something, Reyes said, appearing beside her. For those who carried the truth. Those who risked everything to give us a chance at peace. Vorn read the names. Her crew members. All 12 of them. Immortalized alongside the defenders who had died protecting this place. We did not die, she said quietly. No, but you sacrificed something precious. Your safety. Your certainty. Your comfortable understanding of the universe. Reyes placed a hand on Vorn's shoulder. That kind of courage deserves to be remembered too. The memorial wall would keep growing. More names would be added. More stories would be told. But the nature of those stories was changing. They were no longer tales of war and survival. They were becoming stories of connection, of healing, of a future that nobody had dared to imagine. The sector had a new name now. The assembly had called it the Silence because they wanted to bury what they had done. The humans had accepted that name because it protected them from those who wished them harm. But now, with the truth exposed and peace becoming possible, a new name had emerged. They called it the Sanctuary, a place where species that had been taught to fear each other could learn to live together, where the advanced technology of human survival was being shared with those who had once been enemies, where the dream of cooperation that the assembly had tried to destroy was finally becoming reality. Vorn stood at a viewport and watched the convoy ships dock one by one. Diplomats, scientists, families, the first wave of many more to come. The galaxy was changing, and this small corner of space was at the center of that change. She thought about the question she had asked herself a year ago, when her ship had first detected that distress signal. Why had no one ever returned from human space? Now, she understood. They found something worth staying for. The silence was over. The sanctuary was open, and the galaxy would never be the same.